Yeah, we wait for a couple more minutes. Let Pooja and Naga join. So Ashwita, yesterday did you try to connect to your SQL Server instance? Have you resolved the issue that you are facing in connection? Hi Shirisha, am I audible to you?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay. So I didn't get any response from Ashwita.
Yeah,
Maybe. Yeah, and also Naga and
Pooja have it.
not sure there's no communication whether they're going to join us.
Yeah.
Any point you need?
Oh, okay, yeah, no problem. No problem.
so we discussed about the database properties. Okay, so database level options are unique to each database. Each database are having their own database options. In that we discussed about auto closure. So when the database is not in use, when the existing connections are lost and new connection is not coming from the SQL server, database will be closed and shut down. When the new user comes, again it will try to come up. It is equivalent to our sleep mode in our laptops. So auto shrink. When the auto shrink option is enabled, database files are try to internal operation periodically runs, and it will uh, release the unused space within the database and database files. And the database status. So in the database status we do have online mode, offline mode, and suspect mode. So suspect mode, when there is a database corruption, we will see a database corruption. At that time the database will not be accessible, it will be turned into suspect mode. Or if any file corruption, the database will go to suspect mode. And updatability, the database have two modes, that is read write and read only. So in the read write mode, database will be allowed to read the data from the database objects and write into the database objects. Whereas in the read only mode, users can able to only read the data from database objects. User access, multi-user and single user, and you can limit to restricted user. So one or more users you can allow to connect the database, or single user, only one user can able to connect to the SQL Server database. Multi-user, if you keep the database in multi-user, all the users can able to connect to the database. Multi-user, single user, restricted users. So along with these options, we do have a recovery, database recovery, a full, simple, bulk log. In today's class, we will discuss more on recovery models, and also we have auto update stats, auto update create stats. So these two database options we will discuss in the future classes. So these are the database options we have in SQL Server database. These database level options are unique to each database. Okay. Now we will see all these database options. So how this works and how to keep the mode of each database. So yesterday we have seen if the database is offline, users cannot able to connect to the database. If the database is crashed or files are damaged, then database will go to suspect mode. Let us say moving the database files from one location to other location, or else due to disk corruption, the location where the DB files are available, or else internal page corruption, this will lead to database to go suspect mode. So Windows 4 help, you can see the status of the database.
Hello?
I click on it. Yes?
Yeah, just now the session started, Srinivas.
Yes, Naga. 9:40 we have started. We waited for 10 minutes and we started.
Oh, okay. Sorry, we took the new house. We are busy with that. That's why I'm attending little bit late.
That's okay. So right click on the database, user database, go to properties, options. Here auto close. If you want to change the auto close, you can turn it on by selecting it to auto shrink. Similarly, if it is auto shrink is, if you want to turn it off by selecting auto shrink and make it as true. By default, auto shrink and auto close options will be off. And coming to the recovery model, As we discussed, we do have full, bulk large, and simple. We will discuss little detailed today's session. What is simple recovery, what is full recovery, and what is bulk large recovery.
If you put that auto shrink in false, what is going to happen? That it is
The database will
going
not
to work.
shrink automatically. We have to shrink manually to release the database if any space in the data, free space in the database. Else, whenever
We
it
need to put
required,
it in true. Okay.
yes, we have to shrink manually. Else, the free space will be reused for the next transactions, next operations.
Okay. The option we need to choose here, false or true for that.
False. False means it will not run automatically. True means that option is enabled.
Okay. Okay.
By default, it will be false.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So database read only. By default, it is false. I'm keeping to true. That means my database now it is in read only mode. Let me script it so that we can see how to change it. And then restrict access. Here you will have options: single user, multi-user, restricted user. I'm again scripting.
So we are not writing anything into the database. We are just reading the database, right?
Correct. We set the database as read only, and now we try to write the database into it. So we see what kind of error we'll receive.
Okay.
Now, so database we are selecting, we are running this data. So master database contains all the system level database information and the user database status, all the system level configuration information will be available in master database. When you are altering any other database, that command we are executing under master database. So use master database, alter database name, set read only with no wait. Without waiting, immediately set the database read only mode. So if you want to wait, you can keep that wait number of seconds, you can keep it. Wait after 10. The sense wait 10 seconds and then um, perform the operation. Here no wait means immediately it will try to keep the database in read only mode. Okay, so I am passing the command. I have executed it. Completed successfully. SQL class. Here what is the table I have a employee data table. I am trying to read the data from employee data table. So to read it, select star from employee data. So yeah, emp data. So here this is available in this database. So what I will do, database name dot schema name dot object name I used. So since currently it is in master database, so it is in master database. Rather than changing the database here, I use the database name dot review schema name dot object name. Now I got the result. Right now this is reading the data DB. Correct. We read the data from database. Let me refresh the database and see. I ran this command. It went to read only database. This is online database. Read write mode. Here it is read only. Now what I will do, I'll try to write into the database object.
Okay.
That is table is available, or else I'll try to create a new table. That is also writing, right? editing the
Yeah.
table or creating a new table. So I'm writing into the database, that is by creating a new table. Yes, okay. Yes. Fail to update the database name because the database is in read only.
Okay.
Okay. Since the database is in read only, it will not accept writes to the database. Clear?
Yeah.
I will try to edit the records to the table which is already available. Here I have a table. Here I am keeping. Okay. I'm going to. I just edited the table available in my database. I executing it, and even though I edited it, failed to update the database name because the database is in read only. Okay, so that is database updatability, either read write or read only. If I want to switch back, either GUI, right click on the database, go to properties, database options, change the updatability as read write. By using command, use database master, and then alter database, use the database name, set read write. So this data you are altering in master database, since master database holds the all the system level information. Okay. Now switching back the recovery updatability to read write. If you see here, it is taking time because there might be some connection to the SQL server. Okay, what I will do. No, wait. Database state cannot be changed while other users are using the database. Okay, some other database users are already using it. Who all are using? Okay, now how can I check who all are using?
Right click
That will
properties.
database properties. Okay, so this one, the number of users, 4.
Yeah, the one number of users 4.
Okay, so if you remember my system database system objects, by using system objects we can gather that information. In the system objects, a view is called sys processes. So this object will holds what are the sessions currently running in SQL Server. Select star from sys process. So before that, here we'll run it. How many processes are coming? Total 30 rows are coming. Out of 30, till 51, all are background processes. 52 till 52 background process. Here the host, all these are background. Rest of the process are running from host name. Okay, so what kind of program they are using? SQL Server, Management Studio, Korean Laser or GUI, and then what command it is being executed, awaiting command. Okay, the status of command, what user executing. Okay, what kind of the statement it is successful handle. If you can pass a command by using the DM views, you can read the data. Okay, now what I will do, I will find the filter based on the database name. So what is my database ID for SQL class 6? I click on the properties. Here is DB ID. Okay, DB underscore DB of database name. What is my database name? SQL class. Okay, so the database ID is 6. Now here I will filter where DB ID is equal to 6. Now I will see only connections related to database ID 6. I filtered with, I use the condition where class to filter the records. Earlier, if I don't use where class, I have total 31. So now I used filter with DBID. Hence I used where class. The record count come down 51. So for this 51 user, who is that means this 51 user connected to database 6. So database 6 is SQL class. When I try to change the updatability to read write, it says some users already connected. That's why I cannot able to change it. First we have to remove that user, and then you try to change the updatability. From where it is running? It is running from hostname, this server. Okay, what the statement is doing? Okay, 52, the process number 51. What 51 is doing? See the command.
SPID.
It is waiting for command. Okay, so just a session is opened and it is waiting for command. So dbcc input buffer input buffer of session ID 51. All these are system objects. So physical DBA will make use of all system objects to manage the SQL server. Okay, so dbcc input buffer of session ID 51. When I hit 61, I got what it is currently executing. So I got some information. I'll try to read it, what it is. Okay, parameter 0. Okay, parameter 1. Select class name as name from sys tables inner join columns of then where cast is equal. Okay, human. Okay, so now this some table update it is showing. Fine. What object it is showing, that what session ID it is displaying? It is
Six.
displaying 51.
Hmm.
So if I remove 51, I can able to remove change the database updatability as read write. Since when I try to do it, I'm getting error like some users already connected it. The database state cannot be changed while other users are using the database. So now who is using other user? The other user is 51. I communicated with that user saying that boss, I need to have a database change. Okay, so I want to change the updatability. Currently your connection is available. I will be suspending your connection. That is, I will be killing your connection. KILL, kill 51. Right? If I kill 51, if you see that connection gone. So we have suspended the connection. Since we are the administrators, we'll have full rights on the SQL Server instance. So we
Yeah.
have a we can manage the connection to the SQL Server. So we have the suspended connection number 51. Now no connection to database ID 6. Now I am trying to change the updatability.
To read.
Now now completed. Command completed. Let me refresh the database. It switched back to read write.
Yeah.
Okay. So when it is a read write, it will allow reads and writes. When it is read only, it will not allow writes.
Hmm.
Next. Next is user access. Multi-user, single user, restricted users. The same alter database statement will be running in a master database. Okay. So alter database name, set read only with rollback immediately. So I am keeping the database in single read only with immediate rollback. So without if any users are doing transactions, those transactions will be rolled back immediately. Or else if I don't specify, uh, by default option is with rollback immediately. The same thing we can perform using GUI. Right click, properties, options, restrict access, single user, multi-user, restricted user. Other connections should be turned off when you are changing any database level change. Restricted users, right? This time we'll change back to single user. When I say single user, database went to single user. Now, how many connections are there to my SQL Server? So now, not SQL Server database. Okay, select start from sys process. I'm clicking selecting it. Total 50 connections are there. In the 50 connections, I'm excluding background connections, that is 52. Okay, where SPID greater than 52. So I'm excluded background sessions. Now I got the user sessions. I have total on the server. I have total 2 sessions. Those are related to database ID 1. Database ID stands for master database. Correct? Right? Database ID 1 means master. Here if you see, master database ID 1. Correct? For our current database SQL class. The database ID is 7 or 8. Why I'm not getting any connection? Okay, now I'm trying to connect new query. Okay, now what is the data in my table? SQL Server database SQL is not accessible. Why? It is a single user. Okay, let me kill all the connections. MUL multi-user. Now I can able to read the data in it. Okay, so if I can keep the database a single user, only one person can able to access the database. Person, we can see who is keeping the database. He will be accessing on the database at that time. So once the connection is disconnected, new user who at any time only one person can connect. Similarly, if you recall our previous session in the SQL Server also, we have limiting the connection to the SQL Server. Remember? Here, on the SQL Server instance, properties, connections, maximum number of concurrent connections. This is for SQL Server instance. Now the option what we have seen is that is database. Okay, let me see. Let me keep this option as 2. What is this indicates? Or else 3. What this indicates? The maximum number of concurrent connections. At a time, only three people can connect to SQL Server instance. Okay, we will check that. Now how many people are there? How many people connected to my SQL Server by using this query? I am checking. So what is the process? 53, 54, 55. Okay, I think I may need to restart it because that is a instance level operation. However, I am opening a new session, that is new connection I am selecting. This time I will be using Windows authentication. I have already few users. I created few users. If you see here, SQL Server user 1, 2, 3 I have. So I will connect with other user. Name is wrong. See, the name which I have specified is not correct. USR. User UL. Okay, so I connected this user, connected one user Now how many connections are there? One user with the name with this person, correct? This person, second user, two connections. Number of connections, concurrent connections is we set to 3. Let me just one more user, that is okay, 3 connections. One more connection, SQL authentication. I use the SA. What the password? Cannot connect to this. Login failed for the user SA. What is this? Login failed for SA. So I will go to SQL Server error logs. We'll see what error that indicates. Get my SQL Server status files. Main log SQL Server error log, opening in a notepad, scrolling back. Login failed for the user SA. The reason indicates password did not match provided. Okay, what is the password? This is password. The password 123. Okay, connected. Now I gave a correct password. One connection, two connection, three connection, four connections. But instance level properties, how many I have given? 3, right? Connections, how many? Maximum number of concurrent connections, 3. Concurrent means at a time 3 people can able to connect it. Let us see how many connections are there. 5. So I have PDFC, SP3, SP4, 55, 56, 57, 58. These connections are all are sleeping state from the host name. Okay. Who connected? Login name, user 1, user 2, SA, concrete connections we have. Okay. So this is how in instance level this is related to instance, whereas here the database level, the connections, database level properties, database options, you can customize to single user or multi-user or restricted user. So this one, why I need to restart it. Let us restart it to demonstrate restricting the connections. Let me restart it. Now we'll see what are the connections it have. Now no connection to the SQL server. Refresh this connection, refresh. So when I restart it, all the connections are disconnected. Now I need to connect one more time. User 1, password. Now can you read it? Connection was successful, established with the server, but an error occurred during the login process. Shared memory provider, no process in other end to the pipe. So this is something new error we are getting, correct? Okay, next. We'll see how many connections are there. Only one connection, that is 53. The user who connected that, user 2 connected, right? Already I have a connection. This is one connection, this is 2 connection. right? Now let me to avoid the confusion, let me disconnect. This icon is called disconnection. Disconnected, disconnected. This also I am disconnecting. Now no connections. I will be deleting all. Right now, so we don't have any connections to the SQL server. We have cleared all. Now I am connecting SQL server with the user one user connected within the login process, shared memory. Okay, let me read the SQL server log. What error it indicates. Would not connect because the maximum number of 3 users, concurrent users, already has been reached. The system administrators can use SP configure to increase the maximum value. The connection has been closed. Right now we already exceeded the connection value what we have provided. This is for SQL Server instance level, so we have restricted to 3. So the message says already 3 people already connected, you cannot able to connect it. Who all are 3? It is not allowing me at least. So now how can I check? I'm administrator, I'm not getting access, right? So if I want to increase the connections, I have to connect, then only I can change it. Now how can I change it? Runnable, 3 connections are already there, right? Who from host, this is the host, one is runnable state, other 2 are sleeping state, 51, 52, 53. Select the star from this is a system view, this is a system stored procedure. Either you can use sp underscore who to or select star from sys process to see the session details. If we give parameter sp underscore who to active, it will give the active connections. Okay, total if you run it, who to total how many 29 records are there. Now active, if I run sp underscore who to active, 28 records are there. So one ideal process, background, so all are background are sleeping, only one is runnable. Active is runnable. Let us see what are the connections we have total. Those are total 29 connections out of 51, 52 are running. That's the reason when I try to make a new connection, it is giving error. SQL authentication ADF. So already we reached the 3 maximum limit. That's why new connection is not allowing. Clear? Now this is how we can restrict the connection to SQL server. Disconnect it. Properties. I switch back to unlimited. Let me recheck what value it have. Restart to get it make it effect. So most of the instance level changes require restart, whereas DB level operations it requires lock on the database level. So when we change to a single user to multi-user, or else read write to read-only mode, so existing connections will be killed, and the DB level operations has been taken place. So that means most of the DB operations requires a shared lock on the database. So we will discuss the types of locks and what is block and deadlock, all these things in coming sessions. Now I have restarted. Now I'm trying to make a connections. Earlier it was adding only allowing only the yes, because I have given a restriction value as 3. Now we are not getting that error message. If you observe, this is instance level property, not a database level property. Okay, so the database level option is
single user, multiple users restricted.
User or multi-user. If the database is single user, you even though you connect to the SQL Server instance, you cannot able to access the
database. Yeah.
So you can restrict on your OS level. You can first, if you see the access rights, you can restrict from a firewall level. Correct? Now, if the firewall blocks the connection, it will not allow. Next, port level. So if you range, you are allocating a dedicated port to the SQL server, a range of port to the SQL server. Okay. Next, access to the SQL server, and then connections, number of limiting the connections. Once you connect to the SQL server, access to the database. So these are the different ways of restricting users to access your data. Next, after the database, your database object. So if you want to read the data in the object, these are the checkpoints. I mean, these are the filters you can restrict it. Correct? The user, if the user connect to SQL Server instance, even if you have access to the database, you can restrict. If you can keep in a single user mode, only one user can able to connect it. When you are doing modifications on your database, you can keep the database in single user mode. No other users can connect to the database. You complete the operation and switch it back to multi-user mode.
Yeah.
Okay, so status online, offline, suspect mode. Updatable to read, write, and read only. User access, multi-user, single user, restricted users. Recovery. Okay, we have recovery is full, simple, bulk locked. What is a recovery? We will see. And so whenever we do a transaction from the application, what it will do? Data modification notification sent by the application. That application corresponding page located, data pages are located in or read into the buffer cache and then modified. Okay, modification record is into the transaction log on the disk. The modification is recorded in transaction log on the disk. Checkpoint writes to the committed transaction to the database. What is this? Till now what we discussed, database record the data in our tables in the database objects. Whenever I do a send a request to the database, it will write it. So the internal process, how the transaction works. Let us say you have an account. In that your account is having 5,000 balance. You added 2,000 to your account. That means we have added 2,000 rupees into your account. In that case, what will happen? First, you sent a request from your application, right, like so and so account number, adding 200 rupees. Based on that request, the data available in the database object table, the corresponding page, right, account number 10, data will be copied to buffer cache. Okay, and then that page will be updated in the buffer cache. Like earlier it was 10,000 rupees, additional 2,000 has been added in the page, where not onto the disk. The page is copied into the buffer area. Buffer is temporary storage in the memory. The page from the local disk, it is copied to the buffer area. The page is modified. After modification, what is happening? The modification has been recorded into transaction log file. So that modification related thing is logged into transaction log file. After the checkpoint happens, the completed transaction, that means the modified page has been written back to the disk. So if you see after this fourth point, what will happen? My page have updated data. So before the transaction, my account is having 10,000. After completion of transaction, my account is having 12,000 rupees. So I added 2,000. So in this process, what is happened? The data directly it is not writing to the disk. So internal mechanism, how it is happening? The corresponding page is copied to the disk. Okay, the page is getting modified. The page is a 8 kilobyte page. So that entire page is copied. Corresponding page is copied to the buffer area. That page is modified with the updated instructions, and then that instruction, that record has been logged into transaction log file. And then once that committed transactions are written into the disk when the checkpoint happens. Right, till then when the checkpoint is happen, till that page is available in memory, right, that is modified but yet to write to the disk. That is called dirty page. Dirty page is a page that is modified but yet to write onto the disk. That is called a dirty page. Okay, so normally I think most of the people have aware of the banking system, like how the manual banking system happens. So if you walk to a bank, what you will do as soon as you enter, you will, I'm telling older days, little older days. So we will write into, we'll take a form, we will fill it, account number, name. Okay, if it is a deposit, we will enter the details of money, and then in the back side we will give how many 500s, how many 200s, how many thousands, and then if it is a withdraw, how much amount you want to withdraw, you will give what you are mentioning, their account name and account holder details, and the amount to deposit or withdraw. You will give to a counter one. The counter one person is writing the details, and he will giving a acknowledgement by giving a token number, or you will be waiting for some time. The token will be moved between counter 1, counter 2, counter 3. So what these counter people are doing, they are taking your request, they are writing in their records, and then once the counter comes to a cashier, your token will be called off and your money will be taken from you, or if it is a withdraw, they will be giving you money. As soon as you ask, they haven't given you, right? What they are doing? They are taking your request, right? They logged it on their records, and then they updated their transaction, updated their records, and then they have given money to you. Similarly, whenever a record is coming to the SQL Server database, why we need it? Why you need all these things? Because you need to have a log. You need to have a information on what we are doing. That's the reason we are maintaining a logging mechanism. So if you directly go to cashier counter and give that your request, if he gives that money, where he is keeping in track, even though that is your money, at the end he need to track how much money is deposited, how much money is withdrawn, right? Similarly, in SQL Server, it keeps track of the data, the transactions that are happening into our SQL Server. So when we are discussing about files, primary data file, secondary data file, and transaction log file. So transaction log file hold all the information that is used to recover the database. We discussed about the database files, data file, and the primary data file and secondary data file. In that we discussed file groups, extents, pages. But whereas log file will not have any pages or extents. The data which is available in transaction log, it will hold the information of the transactions in the form of log sequence number, and that information will be used to recover the database. Whenever the modification request sent by the application, that modification is directly not apply onto the disk. That means if I want to withdraw the money, if I directly go to the cashier, he will not give me. So I have to go to counter 1. I have to write share the request form with him, so that my record corresponding account number he will be tracked, and he will check, he will edit it like plus 2000 or minus 2000. After that, that modification is logged into the transaction log. So this information, they will make a note, so and so account number has been modified with 2000. Okay, once that is done, that request has been sent to next counter. So the bulk of one request or bulk of request will be carried to one request, or bulk at a time bunch of requests will be carried to cashier counter. Once the cashier counter, the request is reached to cashier counter, that request has been processed. That means money has been given to the requester. Similar way, whenever a request comes to the database, the corresponding page will be called to the buffer. That page is modified onto the buffer area. So in meanwhile, let us say till we are stopped here. So a request came and that corresponding page has been called to buffer area. At that time, that record is not modified, correct? Still the record from the database, the older data is 10,000 only. When the user try to read the data on the database, that object, it will give older value because the data yet to update, correct? So once the data is modified in the buffer area, it will write into the transaction log. So if you see here, what is happening? Before doing the actual modification, it is logging into the SQL Server transaction log file. That is called write ahead logging. First you log and then perform the task. That is called write ahead logging. SQL Server uses write ahead logging protocol. So don't get confused with TCP/IP via named pipes protocol. That is connection. To make a connection, the SQL Server will use any one of these protocol. Write ahead logging, that is SQL Server database engine internally maintains the write ahead lagging protocol to do the before it does the modification. So once the modification is complete, it rather than writing 11111, whenever a signal comes, it will write all those modification to the disk. That signal is called a checkpoint. Checkpoint, it periodically, that is a background process. So in our, when I hit select star from sys process, there we are seeing 51 background process, right? We have used a where class where SPID is greater than 51. So 1 to 51 are the background processes. In the background process, checkpoint is also one background process. It continuously keep on running in the back end. What it will do, whenever there are any dirty pages nothing but the modification, the changes that are happening to the page and yet to written to the disk, those dirty pages will be written into the disk. So once that is done, your data is modified. Now, write ahead logging. Write ahead logging is a key technique providing ACID properties. So SQL Server uses write ahead logging protocol to log those records before it flushes to the disk. The modification which flushes to the disk. Next, checkpoint. Checkpoint is a process periodically scans the buffer cache to write those buffer modified pages, those are the dirty pages, to the disk. So in which scenarios our SQL Server issues a checkpoint whenever before the SQL Server restart happens. Before restart, net start or net stop, that is a run command, CMD command. From the command prompt we can stop the SQL Server services. So we have seen, go to services, right click on it, stop it. From the command prompt you can operate your SQL services by using net stop. Before SQL Server stopping, it will send a checkpoint. Shutdown, before the OS shutdown, it will send a checkpoint. If you are doing any alter database command, before alter database command, your SQL Server automatically send a checkpoint. Before full backup happen to the checkpoint will happen. Along with that, periodically based on the recovery interval that mentioned into the database, your checkpoint continuously it will run in the back end. It will check for any dirty pages in the buffer cache. It will write to the disk. Okay. Now, so what is your checkpoint is doing? It is writing into the disk all the dirty pages. So dirty pages are the ones which are modified on the buffer cache, and those are yet to write to the disk. Fine. What is it doing? It is writing on it. Someone needs to take care of clearing the ones which are completed, right? So we'll come back to our old example. Your request has been processed. Once the request is complete, the token number has been reused, right? And also if the place has been given for new customer, then only that transaction can be processed. Else there is no place to take the new transaction. Similarly, the dirty page has been written to the disk. If the dirty page is still available in the buffer area, even it has been written, new transaction for the new page modification, your SQL Server still require 8 KB of memory into the buffer cache. So one operation that always keeps a track whether free space is available there or not in the memory for the new transactions. That internal process is called lazy writer. The lazy writer is also a system process. It always tries to keep the buffer is available by removing the infrequently used pages from the buffer cache. So dirty page is modified and it has been written to the disk. So it will wait for some time. Same dirty page will be, so the same modification page request is coming to the same page. Like one time the account holder, he withdraw the money 2000. Okay, so his request will be that request details will be taken. I mean, the counter one, he holds that request for some time. After some time, he will remove that his request, right? He cannot keep that the requester one request from all the days. Similarly, he will wait for some time whether he will come back and he will ask any request, any details for the request. So after some time, he will remove the request. Similarly, my lazy writer reads, it will runs in the background. It will check whether my SQL server have free space for the new transaction to carried out in the buffer area. So what it will do, it will remove the frequently not called pages, and it will remove the dirty pages from the buffer area, and it will always try to keep free space in the buffer area so that new transactions can use that. Write ahead logging, the mechanism that SQL Server uses before modification happen, modification written to the disk, you have to log in somewhere, that is a transaction log file. Write ahead logging checkpoint periodically occurs, and it will write all the dirty pages to the disk. What is a dirty page? Dirty page, it is the page that is modified in the buffer area and it had to write into the disk. What is a lazy writer? Lazy writer is also a background system process. It will always tries to keep the free space in the buffer by removing infrequently used pages. Yeah, am I audible now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know when my audio got disconnected. Okay, so now did you have some idea about what is write ahead logging and checkpoint, lazy writer, and dirty pages? These are the definitions for the interview questions. So nowhere you will see how the lazy writer is working, and what is a dirty page and how to find the dirty pages, number of dirty pages, and these are the interview questions. This is the mechanism how the SQL Server follows. This is for the better understanding. The checkpoint, we will see it. The importance of checkpoint in SQL Server is very high. Based on the checkpoint, your data recovery happens. Full, simple, bulk lot. So previously we were like, whenever we do a transaction, whenever we do a modification to the database, it is directly written to the disk. That modification has been taken to the disk. But before writing to the disk, it is internally, it is happening. This is how, right? The page is copied to the buffer area and then modified, and the details are written into the transaction log file. And transaction log file is the record is keeping, transaction log keeps that record. Okay, checkpoint happens, that relay that buffer area, that buffer page. So from the buffer, the dirty page will be written to the disk. Okay, So how this will help in SQL Server recovery? So what will happen if the database, we have three kinds of database recovery models. Those are simple, full, and bulk logged. So if we keep the database in full recovery model, what will happen? All the transactions will be logged in your transaction log file. So in your sequence, in your mechanism, SQL Server behavior is write ahead logging. So by default, SQL Server logs in transaction log file. Correct. If the database keeps in a full recovery model, similarly, the behavior of the SQL Server, it logs in the transaction log file. And then it will keep on logging in it. So similarly, how the database files is full, your transaction log file also will full, right? You are mentioning your minimum size and maximum size of your transaction log file. So if the database, if you keep in the database in full recovery model, all the operations will be logged in the transaction log file, and it will not truncate, it will not clear manually. So we have to clear it manually by taking the backup or without taking the backup. So if you have data in your transaction log file, that means if you have all the details of the operations of the transactions in your transaction log file, if something goes wrong, you can able to recover your database. Correct? So let us say if you go to previous example, after the deposit of the money or after withdraw of the money, there's some mismatch happens. So if in the end of the day, while they are doing their audit, okay, so there's some many dispute happened. At that time, they can easily validate their daily transactions. Correct? So when they can do that, if they have logs for those records, they can do it. Similarly, if something goes wrong, if you want to recover the database, if you have to bring back the database, if you have the transaction details, then you can bring back. If the database is in full recovery model, all the transactions will be logged in your transaction log file. Once the transaction is committed, your transaction will be written from buffer area to disk. Fine. Next, all the transactions are keep on writing. If the database is full recovery model, it will not truncate manually the committed transaction, the completed transactions. User has to truncate manually by taking the backup or by truncating. Fine. So here the advantage is you are having all the transactions. You can recover till point in time. That means at any time you can able to recover your database. The disadvantage is your log file is getting full. You have to manually free up it. Correct. So to avoid that, let us say if you have more transactions, million transactions are happen. At that time, the log file usage will be more. So my log file will very quickly it will fill out. So for that, here the disadvantage is log file usage is more. The other recovery model is simple. In the simple recovery model, the transaction, like as per the behavior of the SQL Server write ahead logging, the transactions are happening. That is writing to the transaction log file before it is writing to the disk. Okay. The transaction log file, that log information will be available in the transaction log file until it complete. The transaction is complete. Once the transaction is complete, automatically the information about the transaction will be removed, purged, truncated from your transaction log file. Right? The operation, the task is complete. The information about your transaction is removed from your transaction log file. So in this case, if the million records happens, what is happen? Once the million record, those transactions are complete, the records corresponding entries have been removed from your transaction log file. Here the advantage is the use of log file, transaction log file, is very minimal. Until it is active, the operation is running. At the time only, the corresponding LSN, the corresponding information will be available or logged in the transaction log file. Once the transaction is complete, that is automatically truncated from your transaction log file. Okay, that is advantage. Fine. If you, the advantage of in a transaction log full recovery model, if something goes wrong, you can read the data, you can recover the data at any point of the time. Whereas coming to the full recovery model, can you able to read the data from read the records from LSN? Can you able to recover the data from transaction log file? No, because the records are not available. Once the transaction is complete, automatically it will truncate. If the no records are available, you cannot back up transaction log. Clear? In simple recovery model, that's the reason you cannot recover till point in time. Recover point in time is not possible, and also you cannot back up the transaction log because no records are available. As soon as the transaction is complete, commit, it will flush off. If you see here in simple recovery model, you have one advantage, one disadvantage. Full recovery model, one advantage, one disadvantage. Okay, the full recovery model, the advantage is all the advantages we can able to recover it since you are having the data in it. The disadvantage is if the more transactions are happening, the information of those transactions are more huge in the transaction log file, and it will fill up your transaction log file. You have to truncate manually by taking backup. Whereas coming to the log file, simple recovery model, you are not having any information in your transaction log file. You cannot recover the database if something goes wrong. The advantage is your log file usage is minimal. So from these two, the advantage by adding the advantage of these two recovery model, the new recovery model come into the picture, that is bulk log recovery model. In bulk log recovery model, this is almost similar to your full recovery model. That means all the transactions are recorded in your transaction log file, and it will not truncate manually even though if the transaction is complete. We have to manually take the backup, and we have to automatically truncate. It will not automatically truncate. We have to manually truncate by taking the backup or by using truncate option. Clear? So the advantage of a simple recovery model, whenever the bulk operations, whenever a huge transactions happens, the log file usage also minimal. How? So rather than keeping all the information of that bulk operation, it keeps only one entry of that bulk transaction. Let us say, what is a bulk transaction? Let us say I have a company, in that I have 1000 employees. For 1000 employees, I am giving a bonus. So the employee number 100 to employee number 5000, I am adding 5000 rupees in their accounts. So for that, I need not to be insert every individually, right? I can take it as a bulk operation. I can update in one record. Update table where employee number so and so to 50,000, add their salary 5,000 to their salary. So if it is the same operation happens in your full recovery model, you will see 50,000 entries, because for each employee, for each transaction, one entry in your transaction. Employee 1 plus 5,000, employee 2 5,000, employee 3 plus 5,000, employee 4 5,000. So if you see your transaction log, your logs all the transaction. That means we are having more number of entries in your transaction log file. So the same operation happens in your bulk log recovery model. What it will do, rather than keeping 50, all the records for all the employees, what it will do, only one entry it will keep. 50 to 50,000 employees, 5,000 has been added. So the usage of your log file is very low, correct? Whenever the bulk operations happens, it will minimally logged into the transaction log file, so that the usage of log file will be still minimal. Got it? The disadvantage of full recovery model, whenever a bulk operation happens, the log file usage will be more, because all the records will be logged, all the information of those transactions will be logged into your transaction log file. That's why the usage of your log file will be more whenever a bulk operation happens in your full recovery model. Whereas simple recovery model, even though bulk operation happens, once the transaction is complete, it will automatically truncate that information from transaction log file. So whereas in bulk log recovery model, whenever a bulk operation happens, what it will do, it will minimally minimally logs the information, and it will remain keeps like a full recovery model, so that you still have that information in your transaction log file, correct? That is, usage is minimal because it is not keeping all the transactions. The growth of your transaction log file is still minimal. Whenever the bulk operation happens, you can able to recover database whenever happens, whenever crash happens, right? So the advantages of both the recovery models are matched, and the bulk recovery model is placed. So this recovery model is useful whenever a database have more bulk operations, more like a DWH, data warehousing. There we will be having more additions, more modifications will be happen. So for data warehousing related databases, the recommended recovery model would be bulk log recovery model. So for full recovery model, it is recommended to all the databases whenever we need to have a point in time recovery. Like example, critical databases, banking databases, financial databases. For those databases, you need to have your database in full recovery, so that all the records information will be logged in your transaction log file. Because why it is writing in your transaction log file, SQL Server follows write ahead logging mechanism. That way, that's the reason all the transactions will be written into the log information will be written into the transaction log file. After that, 30 pages will be written into the disk. So this database option, based on the database option, your recovery mechanism will happen on your database. So each database will have their own recovery, either one of this recovery model. SP_help_db, if you give the database name, you will see one of these recovery model database options. Recovery model full, simple, bulk logged. What is the use of simple? All the transactions will be written into the information of the transactions will be logged into your transaction log file, that will remain in your transaction log file until you truncate. If the information is available, you can able to recover it whenever you require by taking backup. Simple recovery model. It will follow the mechanism of write ahead logging. That means the information of the transaction will be written into the transaction log file, but once the transaction is complete, that information that will be removed from your transaction log file. The advantages of both the simple recovery model and full recovery model merged together, and bulk recovery model is came, and that is useful for the bulk operations, so that we can, whenever the bulk operation happens, we can minimize the log uses and we can have point-in-time recovery. That means all the information of the transactions will remain in transaction log file until you take the backup. Okay, so at any point in time you can change the recovery model. Since this is a database option. Okay, so any doubts in this recovery model? This is also one database option. Any questions? So based on the recovery model have a interrelation with backups and recovery of the database. So with this recovery only, database logging mechanism is happening, correct? If it is a full recovery model, everything is laying down in our transaction log file. If it is a full recovery simple recovery model, it is just writing. Once done, it is trying removing from your transaction log file. So if the data is available in your transaction log file, you can take the backup. If nothing is available, you cannot take it. So that means based on your recovery model, backups, the types of backups you can perform on your database. Any questions? Naga, Sirisha, Ashwita, and Pooja. I think Pooja drop off. So no questions. We can end this today's session. And Wednesday.
Srinivas, I just
No, I am not able to hear you.
Srinivas, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, Ashwita. Now I am able to hear you.
Okay. Like actually this week we cannot attend our class because it is our final project presentation we have this Thursday. We are graduating this Friday. So like these 2 days
Tuesday and Wednesday. Anyhow, tomorrow we will not have class, right? Ashwita, I am not able to hear you.
Hello.
Yes, Ashwita.
So I just wanted to tell you this. You got me what I told?
Yes, till Wednesday you cannot able to attend the
No,
class,
till
right?
Thursday.
Yeah, that is what. Tuesday and Wednesday anyhow we will not be having classes.
Okay, Tuesday and Wednesday. Generally Tuesday and Thursday, why I'm telling you is because even for this weekend we are not staying here because we are shifting to the new place. We are moving away from college area.
Okay.
So even we won't be having Wi-Fi and all for this weekend.
Okay. I think Naga also have some plans for this long weekend. Okay,
Yes.
Dharma will coordinate with you in this regard. Okay. So
Okay.
based on the maximum attendees, we will
Actually,
schedule.
from Monday, it is fine with us because Thursday we are graduating and Friday we'll be busy moving from this place.
Yeah, got it.
So
Got it.
Friday.
Dharma will update. Okay.
Okay. So that from Monday we can just get on to the regular class. In case if you're conducting classes these days, you can conduct and send us the recorded video so that we'll just listen to them and then continue with the classes from Monday.
Sure. We'll take a call based on the maximum attendees availability.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, same like Ashwita, I cannot attend weekend. I'm busy.
Okay, yeah, that is what. So out of four, Pooja and Ashwita and Naga have plans, right? Only Sirisha. Okay, I will communicate with Dharma, so
Okay.
he will update you on the status. Okay.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Srinivas.
So if you have any questions
Yeah,
for today,
because I
today's class,
have, but can you tell to Dharma that to send that recorded session little bit early because with the kids, I have two kids, small kids. Whenever I get the time, morning time, I'm little bit free to go with the recorded sessions. So I'm getting little bit late. So after 4 o'clock, we get.
sure, I'll inform him. So I'll pass on the message to him.
If you can you tell him send that little bit early?
Sure, I'll
Actually,
inform him.
he's sending a little bit late, like after 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening.
Mhm. So I think he is, he is using some editor to cut the unrecorded or a few things, and he is merging, he is keeping little.
Actually, when we are trying to open the video in the YouTube from desktop, the screen is completely blur.
Yeah, sometimes it is blurry.
Yeah.
When
Like when we use, like when we're opening it from a mobile, it is fine. But when we open it from a desktop, it is completely blur. Like we are not able to view anything from the desktop. The
Okay.
recorded session is completely blur. Like we are not able to read anything.
Mm-hmm. Might be pixel compatibility. Not sure.
Okay.
We'll check on it.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So we will be having maybe if possible we will meet on Wednesday. Else we will be meeting on Monday. Correct?
Our video Yeah, me and Pooja will directly join on Monday because we
Okay.
have the final project till Thursday. So
Okay. So we'll have how many? Almost a weekdays gap. Okay.
yeah,
So let
so
me.
that like if you're conducting classes, you can send us the recorded classes so that during a free time we can just do it because during the class time we'll
Sure.
be preparing for the project.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Let us give few lab scenarios so that you will not forget our classes. So
okay,
when we
sure.
meet on Monday, at least I need to get few answers from you. At least if you
Okay.
remember or you are aware of the topics. Let me give the few scenarios.
Okay.
Okay. Just make a note of the scenario.
Anyhow, you'll be sending the recorded video, right? So we can see from there and
Okay. Okay, this is the one. I think I'll be sharing. So any questions in this? Install a SQL instance, that is named instance. So manage the SQL services. SQL service need to keep in automatic, and agent service need to keep in agent also in automatic. Browser service manual. Okay, and set the port number as 1500. That is static. And assign minimum memory as 512 MB, maximum memory as 1 GB. Set the SQL server into mixed mode, and SQL server configure the SQL server to log 15 logs, keep logs retention 15. Okay, restrict the SQL server instance to allow only 20 connections, 20 concurrent connections. Create database. So you need to create a database with the name AW marketing. So the database should consist of 3 data files, name I have given. Okay, should have 1 log file, and those database. Okay, I'll different. The database should use 3 file groups: the primary file group and the 2 secondary file groups named current data and archive data. You have to create a file group on it. Marketing data 1 and data 2 should have the initial size of 10 MB. So other file have 25 MB. The log file should have 10 MB. Okay. Here the conditions we have: which file needs to be in what file group. So just read the scenarios, and while creating, before to create the database, you read all the scenarios and choose the appropriate option, appropriate values for the database. And also we have given few of database options. Clear? Yeah, Ashwita, are clear now?
Srinivas, I'm clear.
Okay, Naga Dharma, he will communicate you on the class status. Sirisha, maybe you will get a communication from Dharma whether we
Okay.
have
Yeah,
on
no.
Friday.
Yeah, okay,
Okay,
no.
Srinivas. Okay. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you.